What is going on in Iran right now? Why have we consistently continued to do this in the Middle East, where we go after regime change, we do the bidding of one particular nation, we lose our citizens' lives, our taxpayer dollars go through the roof? What is the point of it? We're going to break the whole thing down, a full history of why we're going to war there, who's making the money off of it, and why it always comes back to one particular nation that we really don't like. I'm Jarrod Wright. This is the Wright Wing. You don't want to miss the full episode. Let's get into it.
The Right Wing has been excellent. Jarrod Wright, Christian nationalist influencer.
So if you've somehow been living under a rock for like the past 3 weeks, we're in war. We are at war with Iran on behalf of Israel, and it's not going too hot. The people really paying the price right now are the American citizens. Our gas prices are sky high. It literally cost me $120 to fill up my truck the other day, and that was with 20 cents off per gallon. It's like, this is the most I've ever paid, period. Gas is up at nearly $4 in the small town I live in. $4. Literally 2 months ago, I was paying like $2.30 a gallon for gas. It's nearly at $4. We are almost at the point of doubling. We're the ones getting eat up, if we're being honest. We keep shipping out soldiers, shipping out money, all of our money going to missiles. Meanwhile, the American citizens, like, we can't afford to buy a home. We can't afford to fill up our truck with some gas in it to get back and forth to work. We still can't afford groceries. So what are we doing in Iran? Why does this continually happen? We saw this, the whole neocon movement of the early 2000s, the late 90s. It's like we're repeating it. And it's the same excuses, and they're tricking essentially the same people again to fall for the same exact tricks. So what is going on? Obviously, you probably know we went to war with Iraq and Afghanistan in the early 2000s following the attacks on 9/11 because, obviously that was Muslim people. Totally was not Netanyahu's total plan since 1995 that he wrote in a book and actually detailed out, if I was a terrorist, this is how I would attack the United States. Totally, that did not ever happen. Don't look into that. That would be anti-Semitic. So what are the things that lead to this? Well, this starts way back when. If you really want to detail out most of the 1900s, and you can really even go before then, but let's just prioritize the 1900s into the 2000s. We see a history of very rich individuals who almost always have a love for a nation state of Israel that would be considered a Zionist. They would be considered an Israel supporter, pro-Israel. They have lots of money, and they start funding things because they realize when they fund certain events like wars, they make more money. And whenever they, give support to a people who is very known for running banks and institutions and having lots of money, magically more money appears for these people. It doesn't take, that many steps to figure out what's going on. It doesn't take that many steps to figure out, hey, there's something behind this. So this has happened for a long time. You have companies like, at this point, Lockheed Martin, like DuPont, like different chemical companies that all profited lots of money off of war, all the way back in, like I said, into the 1900s. You can really even try to track this back before then. The key event that I always go back to is in 1913, the creation of the Federal Reserve. 1913. Don't forget, in 1912, the Titanic just happened to sink with a lot of people who opposed the Federal Reserve. The next year, we decide, hey, let's give Jewish people control of all of our money. Let's let them control the bank. That all tracks back to then. Guess what happens a year later? We're in World War I. Well, holy cow, how did that happen? Things kind of progress. Dominoes fall, in case you were wondering. You fast forward another 30 years, we're in World War II. Certain people are making lots of money off of that. And then we're in a continuous war state. Vietnam, we're in Korea. We have, things with like the Israeli War for Independence that made lots of money for certain people. Then we go into our first stint on kind of a war against terrorism idea. And then we go into our second stint, the stint we really want to focus on after 9/11. This all tracks back to a certain person named Benjamin Netanyahu, beginning his rise to fame in the mid 1990s and essentially taking office. And when he finally does that, he has this idea. And the idea is we need regime change because these people are terrorists all around the Middle East. Israel's not safe. We have to figure something out. That's his ideas. Obviously, I don't agree with this, but this was the ideas presented. There's certain names for it. Let me just double check the name, make sure I get it right. They called it the Clean Break Doctrine. This was presented by to Benjamin Netanyahu by a guy named Richard Pearl. He kind of led the group. And basically the idea is a radical shift away from the land for peace frameworks that had defined different things and advocating instead for a strategy of peace through strength. That's the idea. That's the definition I'm reading off for you. That's not coming straight from my own words, just to make sure I don't plagiarize anybody. But the idea is they're going to create peace in the, I guess you call it natural way of domineering. And how do you do that? Well, if you're a small nation state, you don't have much money, you don't have that many soldiers, you go find a big brother. And so what happens is the continuation that this has been built on in the United States of this Israeli Zionist belief system that's just false, that me and you probably know that. If you're watching this, you probably know that. They say, hey, we need your help. And, you know, obviously a big event happens that kind of shovels us into war. And people like Dick Cheney, people like Vanguard, like BlackRock, like Lockheed Martin, love this idea. All of these people, lots of money to and from Israel. They're playing, you know, basically just shuffling dollar bills with them, right? This back and forth, handing them off, you know, playing hot potato with dollar bills, except theirs is like $1 million bills, $1 billion bills. We go to war in the Middle East. We create regime change, which never works. We spend billions of dollars. To be exact, I believe I have the exact number right here. Let me double check it. I'm sorry, not billions, over $8 trillion that we spent over there, right? We have direct war-related deaths, nearly 1 million, and total indirect deaths, we have 4 million. This is how many people died. The daily burn rate right now for the current war is $1 to $2 billion a day. It's how much we're actually spending there. In the Middle East, again, in Iran. This is the same exact story that happened in Iraq, happened in Afghanistan. How many people do you know that I know that lost their lives, lost their limbs fighting these wars for the Israelis, which is essentially, hey, we don't want to, we want to control the entire area. We just don't trust these people. We know they haven't really done much. They may not be great people, but we need you to overtake them. We need you to use your assets, America, your taxpayer dollars, because that's where it came from. We need you to use your people to go fight these wars, to create a avenue for greater Israel where they don't have to pay for it. Meanwhile, all of the government's friends, the Israeli government's friends, are the ones that are going to be making money. Companies like Vanguard, like BlackRock, like Lockheed Martin, all of these companies kind of work together in a lot of different ways. I have a whole list of the companies I got wrote down. They're the ones that make the profit on all of these things. You have guys like Dick Cheney. God, Dick Cheney made so much money. You also have another issue, specifically within Lockheed Martin, where we have a consistent case of people who are in the military or very high up in the government within military type affairs who then go work for companies like Lockheed. And so they know what's going on. They know all the people worldwide. They've communicated with them. Now they're going to work for this big company. Is it not that crazy to think that they might have some communication? Hey, if we do this war, here's what's going to happen. Here's how much it's probably going to cost. And everybody here is going to make money. The people that get screwed are the people below that top rung of the totem pole. Everybody else gets absolutely screwed unless you're one of the ultra elite wealthy. And this specifically ends up coming back to Jewish people. A few names that you see there: Joseph Dunford, John Aquilino, Heather Wilson, Jed Johnson. There's several people who have this. And specifically within BlackRock, I'm sorry, not with BlackRock, specifically within Lockheed Martin, what you have is you have a direct relationship between Lockheed Martin and the F-35 fighter jet, essentially is what I would call it. The F-35 is a specific plane in which Lockheed Martin partners with Israel to test these planes. There are like more pilot hours on the F-35 within Israel with Israeli pilots than any other country. They use them as like, hey, we're going to give you this, like try it out, see what you think. They're getting the most high-tech equipment on the market constantly because their friends work for Lockheed Martin. Who makes money? Lockheed Martin. Who gets the best equipment on our dollar? Israel. Is this a big surprise to you? These communications go back and forth, and it's not just the planes. There's several planes. There's a PAC-3. There's different interceptors. There's different missiles, all coming from Lockheed Martin, and these are not cheap. I wish I had the exact price of each one. These are very expensive things. Now, who are the major investors that are actually giving money to Lockheed Martin? Because Lockheed has a lot of money on its own. Don't get me wrong. They are, top of the line when it comes to it. There's other companies as well, such as, Raytheon. You may have heard about them. They're very close with Israel, who's, Erica Kirk's dad just happened to work for them. Very high up in the Israel division, was actually leading the Israel division of Raytheon. They were integral in things like the Iron Dome. So companies like that are also very much in play. But specifically, looking at Lockheed Martin, you see we have a couple major investors that are on the public exchange, and that's Vanguard and that's BlackRock. Now, both of them are very Jewish. They're very known for being very Jewish. Specifically, though, BlackRock, owned by Larry Fink, big-time Jew, big-time Israeli guy, very good friends with Netanyahu, with Israel. And yes, this is the same company that's buying up all of the single-family homes here in America. They're buying them up, $10,000, $20,000 over market, which is driving the price up and then turning around and renting them out so that you can't afford to buy the home. You're pushed out now. And this is what's inflated the housing market so much. If everyone's buying houses $10,000 to $20,000 above market, the market gets inflated over and over and over. So it's either you overpay for the house or you get screwed and have to rent now because you can't afford the house. This is the same company. Now, they are very integral in Lockheed Martin. They give a lot of money to Lockheed Martin. This is a very big issue. Now, Larry Fink specifically, is very, very pro-Israel. He was very outspoken when October 7th happened. He's been very outspoken for that place in general. I mean, he's a Jew, so it makes sense. What do you expect is going to happen? So he's funding these things through his investment company to Lockheed Martin, very Jewish, very good friends with Israel, giving them the weapons. Israel is, profiting. They're getting the best in weapons to go do their bidding and the best they can with what they have. But they need, more weapons for one, because they can't afford them. They can't just afford to go buy them, even at a discounted rate or whatever. They need more people. They need more surveillance. So they hire Big Brother, United States, and we start shilling out money left and right, taxpayer dollars all over the place. Our taxpayer dollars directly go to Israel, which directly funds rich Jews who are their friends to supply weapons to go to war against countries that are no threat to us, against countries that can't even reach us with their weapons. Meanwhile, we have so many issues here at home. Like I said, you can't afford to buy a home. It's getting next to impossible to buy a home, to live the American dream. You can barely afford to go fill up your vehicle to get back and forth to work. Meanwhile, our tax dollars pay for Israel's wars, pay for their people to have health care, for their mothers to not have to work. They get stipends for every kid that they have to increase their population. All of our money here goes elsewhere. Meanwhile, you got Somalian fraud going on. You have Jewish tax fraud up in the north. You have major issues here going on. We're shipping in illegals, which is a whole nother thing, causing the housing market issues, causing job issues, H-1Bs coming, taking check jobs. This isn't just a single stance issue. This spreads all the way across the board, and it all plays in. It's the same people orchestrating all of this stuff, by the way. Meanwhile, our soldiers are dying in Iran, have died in Iraq and Afghanistan. Our money goes to those wars. Our sons' lives go to those wars. Who are the people that profit? Rich Jews who know what they're doing when they get into the defense industry, and Israel, more rich Jews who have their own land. And meanwhile, the neoconservatives, who we thought the whole movement was done. We thought the neocons were done. Nope, they're back. They're doing the same thing again, and people are falling for it. The neocon movement is here, and it's stronger than ever. This is like Star Wars. This is like Star Wars when you thought Emperor Palpatine was dead. You thought he was done. And then they came back and all of a sudden he popped up out of nowhere. You're like, where the hell did you come from? If you can even call it, I don't consider the last 3 movies to even be canon, if we're being honest. If you're a Star Wars fan, you know what I'm talking about. The last 3 movies sucked. And this is why, because Emperor Palpatine, here's the big bad guy that popped up out of nowhere. We thought the neocons were done. We thought wars in the Middle East were at least somewhat done. And here we are, roped into the same bullcrap. We have problems at home. Doesn't matter. We're going to go fight Israel's wars so that they can accomplish greater Israel, so that they can expand, take over the entire area, become a superpower, say screw us and probably nuke us. That's our future right now. That's what we have to look forward to. Meanwhile, me and you can't afford anything. Inflation's out of control. We can't even have a strong border on our own nations. We're at war within our nation. There's a left versus right war, who obviously I believe the right should win, but it's all a big distraction in the grand scheme of things, so that we don't see what's going on. Through all of this, encapsulating all of this, are the Epstein files, where we have hundreds of pedophiles running around the streets, probably rich ones too, who are orchestrating all of these things happening. They just get to do whatever they want because they're rich and they can sweep things under the rug. Oh crap, they're about to release the Epstein files. I'm about to get indicted. Well, I guess we better just go to war. Let's just let our people die instead of going to jail. I mean, why not? That's the plan. That's literally what's happening in front of our eyes. We still don't have an audit on Fort Knox. Where's all the gold in Fort Knox? I mentioned the Federal Reserve. Another integral event in history was when we came off the gold standard. This is part of the reason why JFK is dead today. Just part of it. They came off the gold standard. Guess what? Jewish-owned banks, the central bank of the United States, can then essentially just create money as they want. They get rich. We get screwed. Inflation goes through the roof. There's not a set price for anything. Money has no value. And if money has no value, well, we can spend it all on war. Continue to create hyperinflation. We make our rich Jewish friends in the defense industry rich. We take care of Israel, make sure all their people are taken care of. Screw you, American. You're the one that's going to pay for it all. That's the whole premise of what is going on. This Iran war is not just like a microcosm. This is a macrocosm where you see everything that is going on. What happened before we go bomb Iran? We go attack Venezuela. We take their oil. Why? Because of the golden age. Now we have an oil reserve. The Strait of Hormuz is absolutely shut down. Iran is controlling it entirely, so that oil cannot get back and forth, which skyrockets the price of oil, because how's it going to get where it needs to go to get shipped out? They're not allowing any of our people in or out. It's shut down to us, which is why gas is so high, if you're wondering. And, magically, our defense people just didn't recognize it. Oops-a-daisy. We didn't expect them to do that. That's their one point of true control over us, is that strait. And you didn't expect them to shut it down? Iran's not in this war to try to win it. I don't know if y'all understand that. Iran is in this war to try to drain every last penny out of the United States until we give up. They know, ultimately, when it comes to military power, we would win the war if we really came after them. Their goal is they know we lose if it takes a long time. We're 3 weeks into this thing. We are losing. This went from a few days operation to potentially looking at a few months, potentially a few years at this point, because of that way we stretch things out. They're going to milk it dry. I'm sure the defense industry is going to milk it dry. Who gets screwed? Me and you. Welcome to the Iran war. You want to know why I don't care about going to war there? It serves no purpose. Their missiles cannot reach our land. You know who it can reach? Israel. That's why we're over there. That is the big point surrounding all of this. And I hope that you can see that. I hope you understand the history of how this happens, what happens, who runs things, who profits off of it, and ultimately who gets screwed. That's what you have to understand to wake up. This is why we shouldn't be in Iran. It cost me and you money. Matter of fact, I think I had some numbers on here of how much it actually cost us. Maybe not. How much people are going to make. Lockheed Martin, $194 billion. RTX, $268 billion. This is just different companies that are, very integrated within these things. The Tomahawk strikes come from the RTX. That's the one where we double tap the school with Tomahawk missiles. That's how we know it was from the United States. So different things like this are what fund these wars, or who profit off of it. Because this isn't done at no profit. These people make profits. That's why they're so rich. This is why there's always wars going on. You know what Henry Ford said? Henry Ford said if you isolated the 100 richest Jews in the world, we would have world peace. And I honestly believe that. The 100 richest Jews are going to be behind these defense industries. They're going to be in Israel pushing the wars, things like that. In America, funding the wars indirectly, funding the neocons who are then going to push the wars. Isolate the 100 richest Jews, you'd have world peace. That's what it comes back down to. That is the true history of the wars going on. And if you enjoy this, if you think the same, I'm Jarrod Wright. Make sure you follow. This is the Right Wing. I post these videos. I post informative. I post funny. I do different things. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to follow along, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.